Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. As you can see tonight, we have a full house. Jeremy's back with us, Fernando's with us, but we're going to be losing Fernando for a few weeks soon as well. But how are you guys?
Good.
Oh, good.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I'm glad to see the OGs together.
That's it. 3 up, ready to go. So tonight we are gonna, I don't know, do we call this Paranormal 101? I don't know what the correct word is for it, but we're going to talk about different types of spirits, whether you want to call them ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, all those different things that we all love. We're going to talk a little bit about each of them. So I know Fernando's had some experience with a certain type when he goes out to Kings Park, or at least there's evidence that there's something like that around. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ever since I started off in this journey within, the paranormal field. I mean, I've always been in the paranormal field for well over 20 years, but now with social media, I'm interacting with a lot more people, and I'm just, I am basically kind of the guy behind the curtain, just peeking and just seeing what everybody's doing. It seems like a lot of people within the field don't really know that there are different types of ghostly activities out there. So I figured, you know what, let's talk about them. Maybe it might help future paranormal investigators, actually, find the difference within certain haunts. So, as you were saying, my experience in Kings Park, actually, I uploaded a video on YouTube, and we was in a patient's ward kitchen dining area. This building is like massive. It's actually like a two. It it's almost like two buildings put together, and there is a specific window that every time we pass by it, my partner Fuma, he always, he always says, there's this old lady at the window. So we take pictures and all this and that, and unfortunately, I can't see it. But when we get to that specific window, oh, I mean, I'm sorry. Before we get to the actual building, we we come across this tree that looks like like it looks like it was cut off at a weird height, and then it has like a bushy top, almost like a chichilla kind of plant.
No idea what one of them
And
is.
you guys ever heard of a chichilla?
Nope.
No. Oh man,
Not like
that's
your chia pets.
chia pets. Yeah, that you add water and
Yeah,
like it has different
the sprouts.
well, exactly. And he always says hi to it, which at first, I would be like, all right, hi. Like, and he always says that that is a dryad. And I'm not one to never judge or look at anybody. Everybody has their own thing, and I respect that. I would say hi too. And then when we go to this window and we conducted this EVP session, it was by far one of the most intelligent EVP sessions I've ever heard. Not only were we getting EVPs through our voice recordings, but specifically through the spirit box. There was an instance where Fuma says, "Do you like looking at the dryad?" Then through the EVP, through the voice recording, we get "I might," and then he asks, "What is her name?" And through the spirit box, it says Arcadia. And it was like literally a conversation going back and forth. And you know, I know
So,
not a lot of people are very familiar with dryads, especially within the paranormal field. Because would it would it be considered paranormal? Like, is that an entity, a
well,
spirit?
that's what you're going to tell us about right now. What do you think it is?
Yeah.
I
You,
mean, honestly, I never heard of a within my experience, never came across a dryad. Through my research, specifically due to that AVP session that day last year when we were there, that's when I was digging into doing some research on what is a dryad. And it's basically dryads are within Greek mythology a nymph or nature spirit who lives in trees and takes the form of a beautiful young woman. In Wikipedia, because this is actually where I got most of my information, uh, one of the spirit's name is actually Arcadia, which came out through the spirit box.
Interesting.
And mind you, at this point, that name was like, oh, that's a pretty name. I've never heard it before. And that for it to have a connection, that was amazing. Let's see, dryads were originally considered the nymphs of oak trees specifically, but the term has evolved towards tree nymphs in general. Often their life force was connected to the tree in which they resided, and they were usually found in sacred groves.
It's interesting when you talk about nymphs and everything because they tie into Fae lore, and obviously you're talking about the fairies, the leprechauns and things like that. Now we interviewed Barry Fitzgerald from Ghost Hunters International, and he's had many experiences with the Fae over in Ireland, as well as in elementals, which is a completely different thing, which we won't go into that one in the moment because when we get Barry back, we'll get him to go right into the elemental stuff. But yeah, that's a new one, the Dryad. I've not actually heard of them before, and the fact that you got the name as well with the EVP, that adds something to it as well.
Crazy.
So it is. Now, for anybody who's just getting into paranormal investigation and they want to go out on ghost hunts or they want to help families out and things like that, before you start helping families, you really do need to know the basics of the spiritual realm and what types of spirits are out there, because not all of them are intelligent. Some are just like a recording, and that's what we're going to talk about. So when we talk about a residual haunting, that is not an intelligent haunting. That is basically something that repeats itself over and over again when the time is right. So if they see that woman walk down the hall and then turn around and walk through the wall, then it's basically like a tape recording. Something has happened at some point which has basically impregnated a moment in time into the walls and into the surroundings. So when weather conditions and atmospheric conditions are right, it's like pressing play on the tape recording, and then you see the recording of them doing the same thing again. Now, over time, when people redecorate or, put wallpaper up, or whatever they're going to do, generally they don't strip wallpaper or anything like that. Now, back in the olden days, the paints they used to use had heavy leads and things like that in them, which are used in magnetic tapes, the old tapes that those of us that are old enough remember, instead before CDs and things. And it's a very similar thing. Now, obviously, over time, when they repaint or when they put new wallpaper up, it's like re-recording over it, or you're starting to muffle it up. It might still press play and you might still see it, but then it becomes a bit more transparent, a little bit less focused, and they will never hurt you. They will never interact with you because it is just a recording. And if you come across a case like that, it will be of great benefit to the family to know that that's all it is. So you have to be able to identify the different types of hauntings, because as I said, a ghost is not just a ghost. There's many different things which encompassed in the spiritual. So, and then from there you move on to more intelligent hauntings. Sorry, I don't know if Fernando or Jeremy want to take that one.
I was going to say define intelligent hauntings.
Well, when I say intelligent, I don't mean they're their Mensa level or anything like that. What I mean is intelligent as in they can interact. There is an intelligence. There is an actual being that is interacting. Interactive might be a better word for you to go off.
Well, I mean, Interactive is actually a very good word to use, but within the paranormal field, they are, um, they're describing this type of haunting as intelligent because you could interact with it. And, if you ask a question through EVP or sometimes even pictures and videos, thermal, if, basically, can you show up in a picture in 3, 2, 1? You take a picture and there's, you see something.
Mm.
So, sometimes, the interaction back and forth. I mean, there is some sort of intelligence there. So it makes you wonder, when you pass over, you know, um, that I would really like to talk about the afterlife at a certain point because it's just weird. Like, do you have an option when obviously there's no option when you pass
N-
away,
no,
but
because you know,
is there like a voting booth and you go like, do I want to be residual or do I want to have some, or do I just go forward? Yeah.
but
I don't
this
know.
is the
I
thing,
don't know.
right? This is the
Kinda-
thing about a residual haunting. The person that's the spirit that you are seeing doesn't necessarily have to be dead. Something so traumatic happened there that the energy from that moment is recorded in the walls. That they may have just witnessed something. It doesn't mean they were killed. They could be down the hall and they could be seeing a recording of themselves. You know what I mean?
That is wild. I've never heard of that
Well,
theory.
it's like, okay, we're recording this now. We can sit back and watch ourselves. You know what I mean? We can watch ourselves later on in the recording. That's the same as what a residual is. I don't have to be dead.
No, I mean,
You know what I mean?
uh,
It's exactly what it is.
that's the part where I was, like, wow. That's kind of, so okay, so there's another type of haunting that, it kind of feels like you're almost describing it, and
Doppelganger,
that is doppelbanger, that's, it's
doppelbanger,
double ganga.
doppelganger. It's a German word.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so it's like that's an interesting theory. I mean, I've never heard of somebody being alive seeing themselves as a residual.
I'm not saying that's what happens, but what I'm saying is it's a possibility. When you're interacting with an intelligent haunting, that's somebody who's already, or somebody that's already crossed over, so that they are gone. But an actual recording, as in a residual case, you don't necessarily have to be gone. You could see a child walk down the hall and go through the wall, which back when they lived there was a door there. But you could be an old lady now living in the same house and you see this little girl in a white dress go down and through there. It could be the same person, but you're
That's
just
wild.
replaying on
I
a
never thought about
recording.
it like that.
Well,
I
this is
never
the whole
thought
thing
about
about
it
the
like that.
paranormal. You have to think outside the box,
Open
and
mind.
yeah, and that, like I said, nothing you're going to do is going to change anything other than stripping the walls, taking out all the heavy metals and stuff like that. And that's why, in this day and age, really, there are not that many residual hauntings left to be found because they started banning heavy metals in the paints and things like that, and things have been recorded. They've been wallpapered over so many times now that you actually those recordings might still be there, but they're that faint that you can't see them. So from
So,
the
would you say that it's more rare to come across a residual
in this day and age,
than
yes,
a intelligent?
unless you're in a historic place which has been left untouched. In that situation, there's still the possibility of seeing an actual reasonable quality. I know it sounds funny, but a reasonable quality residual energy floating around. So yeah, it's funny, but with those as well, you don't know when the timing is right. The atmospheric conditions have to be just right. The energy levels have to be at a certain level before it's like pressing play, and then away it goes. But when you go into different sort of hauntings, which the reason why we're doing this show tonight is because just before we start recording, we were talking about a residential case that my team has on at the moment, and Jeremy's fully across a lot of the details and everything for it. And obviously, for privacy reasons for the family, we're not getting involved. But it has the potential to be a Amityville level event. That's all I'm going to say. It's the police are already involved. There are people in hospital, and it's a family with a very similar number of kids to the DeFeo family, and there's just so many similarities. I'm not going to go any further than that, but that sparked this conversation about the different types of spirits and stuff, and that's why we're going with this one tonight. So that leads us on to
just looking in.
Yep.
I was just saying that looking into when I said about, what would you classify as an intelligent haunting, then you got intelligent/interactive, and I was just reading then, and it brings up Einstein's theory as well. So I was just reading that, and it's as a matter of beings, we're all energy. On the quantum level, we're made up of atoms and neutrons. As a matter of energy and beings, we have intelligence while we live. We have an energy aura that surrounds our living bodies. This aura is created with the millions of electrical currents that are created through our bodies. Our brains create brain waves, a form of pure energy that's transmitting our thoughts and what we see, what we feel, etc. When our mortal form dies, the aura constantly surrounds our bodies, leaves our bodies. We lose 6 ounces on the instance of death. What is this 6 ounces? Perhaps it is leaving our body. Is it our soul? The energy, this energy, the aura, you may even call it, is your soul carrying the information, what we used to be. If it can do this, then why couldn't it also carry our intelligence? If it can carry our former intelligence of previous lives, then it should be able to interact with us intelligently.
Exactly.
When we see this aura, we call it a ghost. If this ghost is able to interact with us, is aware of us, can touch us and communicate with us, then is it an intelligent or interactive haunting?
Yes, exactly. And again, that goes into
Einstein.
It's
Einstein's theory, yeah.
And that goes into that whole thing.
That's
Though
interesting.
It makes sense though, because you can't get rid of matter; it just changes form. Same as energy, you can't get rid of energy; it just changes form.
No, I say that's very interesting because it is very well known that the scientific field.
I wonder where he was going with that for a sec.
I was waiting for something else then.
Yeah.
Doesn't believe in the paranormal field, and then to have the mecca of scientists, Einstein, to be talking about it, it kind of makes me question where did they, give up, or
science has always played a part in this.
Yeah, I mean,
look at the gadgets and gizmos you use. That is science.
Yeah, exactly. Now you talk about Einstein. You talk about. Sorry, he was in my. I had his name in my head just a moment ago. Dude in the wheelchair.
Hawking.
Yeah. They were right They were right out on the edge with all of this. And these are some of the smartest people in the world, but we just can't. We can't go there because mainstream science doesn't want to go there. But the problem is, it's science fiction until it becomes science fact, and for it to become science fact, science has to investigate. And that's what makes me think there is something out there that they're scared of investigating, because once they investigate it, it becomes science fact. So that makes me worry about what their interpretation of what it is actually is. But what Jeremy was saying about it is scientifically proven that the body at the moment of death does lose weight. They've tried to say is it air escaping, or is it this, or is it that? But even at the moment of death, you don't lose that much air out of your body. You just stop breathing. The air's still in there. So what is that weight? And that's why they're saying they believe it's the soul or whatever it is. Now, as Jeremy was saying, energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. I mean, take water, for instance. It's an element, one of the most important elements for life. It is a liquid. When you chill it down, it becomes a solid. When you heat it up, it becomes a gas.
Vapor.
Yeah, but it is always still the same thing. And with the human body, when that dies, this is just the vessel. What's inside is still there. That is then set free to roam. And people like Lorraine Warren, she could see people's auras. It's around us all the time. We just can't see it. But when the body is gone, that aura is still there. And as Jeremy was saying, people see that as a ghost. And again, if you were a good person while you were alive, one would lead to believe that you would be exactly the same in passing, the same as if you were a murderer or a very aggressive, nasty person in real life, that you're not going to change in the afterlife. And that is what we're dealing with this private case that we won't go into any more than that. But that leads on to, when we talk about intelligent hauntings, it brings into line poltergeists and things like that. Now, because this person was alive in our world and has passed over, then it's not demonic by class. It is a nasty spirit. And if they're throwing things around, it becomes poltergeist activity, which if everybody's seen the film, they know exactly the kind of thing that you expect. And there are a lot of very, very, very actually creepy cases about poltergeist activity. So it's
noisy spirit.
The noisy spirit. Again, it's another German word. I don't know what the Germans were doing, but they've got all these words: doppelganger, poltergeist. I'm sure there's a lot more out there. And in fact, that TV show, The Grimm, that entire thing was based on all these German words for things. So I don't know. I don't know what the Germans were doing, but that leads to a completely different show.
I think another type of haunting would be shadow people.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever come across these kind of entities during your investigations?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think out of, if I was to categorize it, it is really interesting to come across an intelligent, spirit, one that you could interact with, but I think, obviously if you come across a poltergeist, you're seeing things levitate, seeing things move, being thrown, I think that would be, like, I would say, the most terrifying to witness. But when you come across shadow people, the shadow people have a bad rep because, they're all black, as far as if you come across them. So people might think that they are, directly descendants from, the person down there.
Not in every case.
That is not necessarily
we had a residential case years ago, and it was a newly married couple, and they just had a little baby, and they were living in a house up in the hills above Perth, and they were having, like, the old part of the house was, the front was the original part of the house, which is a couple of 100 years old or 150 years old, what it is, but there's been an extension built at the back. Now, they got in contact with us because one of the rooms in the front was where they'd witnessed this giant, these were high ceilings, and this thing, it was what you would call a typical kind of hat man type shadow person. It was a long coat kind of thing, and didn't see eyes or anything like that, but there was a hat involved. So I was picturing like somebody in a dryers of bone, one of those big kind of things. Now, she was concerned because it was focusing on the front room, which was where they'd set up the nursery for the little baby. And they asked us to get involved, and nothing nasty ever happened, but it would stand in the doorway and just look into the room. So we ended up getting some readings because she said they had seen it down the new part of the house as well, which is interesting because obviously with renovations, everybody says that's a catalyst for a lot of this kind of activity. So we set a number of K2 meters up around the way we would walk into the front corridor. Now, this is including the new bit, so it's definitely not a residual type haunting because it would have followed the original path. But this thing, as it was coming out, we got glimpses of it on the camera, but that footage is long gone now. But what was impressive to us is you'd see the K2s start to flicker, and then that one would go down. Then the next one would go and stop. And then the next one will go and stop. It was actually following the same path that we did, and we recorded it all the way up to that front room when the K2 stopped going, and it was there. So there are signs there of an intelligent haunt, but not specifically an interactive one. You know what I mean? It's intelligent because it's following a different path around furniture and stuff like that, which furniture, as everybody knows, gets moved. So that's a weird thing in itself. But it followed the way all the way around and never hurt anybody. But we did a bit of a cleansing there, and that family are actually still on my Facebook friends list, and they've got a couple of kids now, so obviously things are going good. I don't know if they're still in the house, but that's another thing. You know, when I said about intelligent versus interactive, they can be mutually the same thing, or they can be completely separate things, you know. And then the poltergeist is a separate one. Then you go into another case that we came across, which is probably a little bit out there in the paranormal. I mean, the whole paranormal field is out there anyway, but that is interdimensional or transdimensional spirits.
Portal hauntings.
Portals and things like that, yeah. And you'll know when we talk about Albany and stuff, because we've been down there a number of times, we had an interactive conversation with a spirit over a board when we did a board session, but across other types of devices as well. And what we got from that was this was a lady who believed that she was alive, but it was 1912 or 1913 or way back, and she was seeing us as spirits. And of course, we're seeing her as spirits. So that brings in this whole multiverse theory of, is there two separate worlds going, and all different time periods as well? Because they say in any place, every moment in history is living out somewhere. And if you talk about the Big Bang, whatever went bang, you know, because nothing existed until the Big Bang, but something went bang and something caused the big thing to go Big Bang. So what is that? And then there's talk about the universe is expanding and contracting all of the time. So you think about it like each reality is a bubble. Yeah, each one is a different bubble. What happens when two bubbles come close together? What happens on Halloween? Everybody says that's when the veil is at its thinnest. So if two bubbles come together and then separate, if you're in the right place at the right time, you're seeing a glimpse into another reality, and they're seeing a glimpse into our reality. That is a very good explanation for what we witness. So that, you know, and then you can take it that next step where portals exist, where you can actually traverse into these other realities.
That is very interesting. That story that you just mentioned, because I even had to look it up because I was like, that sounds so oddly familiar. And from you basically explained from the movie The Others with Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, but that
I
came
seen
out
that
that came out after we were down in Albany, and that
So
was
the
already
spirits
documented.
actually, yeah. So the spirits actually didn't know they were deceased, and
But they're not. This is the
they,
thing. To them,
yeah,
they were not deceased. They were living in a
yeah,
completely other
yeah,
reality. And that's
exactly.
another thing, you know. I mean, that goes into multiverse theory. Does that explain the Mandela effect? You know, there
Uh,
are so many. The reality, your brain can explode if you keep going with all of this. And we're not even talking about demons and demonics, which, again,
we
that,
haven't even gotten there.
well, I don't know if don't even know if we really want to go there because they are that rare, and Hollywood makes them out to be a lot worse than what. Well, not a lot worse, but a lot more dramatic than what they can be sometimes. I mean, we spoke with Joe Frankie not long ago, and as he said, quite often the reality is a lot more scary than the movies make them out, but the movies make them dramatic to get your adrenaline pumping and stuff like that, whereas the reality is just hardcore reality, you know. And it's interesting. Look at that, we've already run out of time, and we haven't even started on everything yet.
Man, I was about to start hitting this thing up because I actually mentioned it earlier about funnel ghosts,
We'll
and
go for
then
it. We'll
it's
go for a
talking
bit longer.
about it actually talks about a funnel ghost or vortex is frequently associated with cold spots. So you were talking about interdimensional,
Yep.
spirits,
Yep.
and then is is that what this is? They usually take on the shape of a swirling funnel, and most paranormal experts believe that They are a loved one returning for a visit, or even a former resident of the home appearing as a wisp of light or a swirling spiral of light. So, are are they just describing an orb?
To me, it
When they
sounds
talk
like they're
about,
describing Casper the Ghost because they have that little wispy ice cream thing happening at the bottom.
yeah, right, right, because as you was talking about the interdimensional and possible even a ghost, a spirit that could appear in one place and be in another. It kind of actually brings me back to my very first paranormal experience that got me into this journey. When I don't believe into that I was visited by the boogeyman, but never ever has no paranormal activity ever happened in my apartment when I was a kid. But something paranormal happened in that instance. Never again has anything have ever happened after that.
Mm,
Never before, never after. It was just that experience.
mm,
Something came out of the closet. So it's just is that is interesting. I'm still looking. That is like supernatural. I'm still looking for that one specific that
mm.
one specific.
No, there are lots of different. Now we're talking purely spiritual type stuff. We're not talking about cryptozoology or any of those other things. You know what I mean? So anything that's actually physically there, we're not referring to that. We're talking about energy, spirits, things that go bump in the night, but you never know what they are. That thing. I actually did a video on this, which I still haven't done the video for, the full video for, which I am going to do. But you're watching TV and something's happening out the corner of your eye, and you look around, and you can't see it. And I actually put a post up in the WAPR page today asking people what their spookiest stories were. And there's been more than one of them where they've been lying in bed and the hands sort of, flopped over the side of the bed and stuff like that. Then something's actually grabbed their hand from under the bed.
That just that just reminds me of another the guy under the bed always having wet fingers when you wake up.
Oh,
You never heard of that one?
Oh, see, Jeremy's back on board now.
It was a serial killer under the bed that would lick their fingers.
oh man.
Oh,
No.
that one. We did that one in Urban Legends, didn't we? We did a story about
Yes. So
Yeah.
when you say demonic activity, I know we're not going to touch on it too much or much at all. Just going to be quick. But underneath the heading here, it's got demons are entities that never had a mortal or human form.
Yeah.
Origins are extraterrestrial. Why? If you believe that God and his angels are from the heavens, that would make them extraterrestrials. If Satan and 1/3 of the angels rebelled against God's kingdom, then Satan and 1/3 of the angels became demons, also extraterrestrials. This is why they never had mortal human form. Einstein that said that E equals mc squared. Energy can be converted into matter and matter into energy. So demons are pure energy entities, and they can be described 3 different ways.
It's interesting.
Einstein was on something, man. I'm telling you.
Dude, like
He had an out there brain.
five huge points, but I'm not going to go into it. But
All that about energy, and then especially when you was describing, H2O, that it's liquid. When you freeze it, it's solid. When you burn it,
You can't burn water.
and then talking about all of Einstein's theory. So what would it just makes sense, and energy and water, because how would you describe ectoplasm or
Sticky.
yeah. So it's like there's like so many different, as far as like something you could feel, smell, touch. It's
Now that you've brought up ectoplasm, let me just bring up one little thing. I'm going to try and not name names or anything like that, but I haven't mentioned this person's name before. This person is somebody that I know personally, and they worked for the Vatican on one of these. In fact, if you watch that TV show Evil, where they go out and then they investigate claims of demonic activity or claims of angelic intervention, that was a team that went out and actually did the research and investigated. Well, this person that I knew was on one such team, which was a Vatican team. She's been to the Vatican. Oh, I'm just going to say she's a she. Anyway, they went to see. They've been to the Vatican and stuff like that. And when you mention ectoplasm being a sticky sort of, well, I said that, but you know, it's a gooey stuff. But what happens is it does fossilize, and she has some. And when I was over for dinner at their place years ago, she actually pulled it out, and it's even in its not maybe fossilized is the wrong word because that's really ancient, but it's solidified, and there's still something about it. I can't explain it, but there's still something about it. It's almost like the energy is still in there, even though it's sort of crystallized, it's solidified, and I was just wanting to get a sample to investigate, but she's not allowing that just purely because of the fact that her work for the Vatican, she doesn't want it getting, going out further.
Obviously, but my question is, okay, did she, you said like a crystallized, so what was it like?
It's not crystallized. It was. To me,
was it like?
No. Let me finish. To me, because you're going towards describing what it's like. If you picture you eating about 3 tons of chewing gum, and when chewing gum goes hard, and it's been left under the table or something like, it's a similar kind of look to that. But you can definitely tell it's not. There's more to it. You know what I mean? That's the kind of sort of. It was about the pieces that I saw were about that long, and apparently these were taken from a case where they'd actually run down the walls of this case that they were involved in, and they'd scrape these up to take for samples. There was a lot more, but she just got a few of these shards, and I don't know how to explain it other than just being in the presence of this stuff. It put you on edge. I mean, she kept this stuff solidly locked away, and she is a person with a lot of credibility, and I know her personally. I've known her for years, and yeah,
that's wild. I mean, because you always hear about different cases, and that there are things just dripping down the walls. I could, off the top of my head, even Zach Bagan's Demon House. They had like this. They said it was like something on the walls, and we could go even into television shows. Ghostbusters. Well, in the library, and you see the people scooping up all this slime. That's wild.
Yeah. Now, everybody who watches this show knows I've actually witnessed and I've been involved in documenting 3 different exorcisms, and even in that, I've not seen ectoplasm running down the walls. So the cases that the Vatican are involved in, that's next level shit that we just don't know about, and that's a whole different show. That's a whole different show. But
how can you apply for that?
It's not an apply for job. It's we've heard about you and we want you to be involved kind of job. Believe me, traveling around the world on the Pope's dime to investigate some of this stuff, it would be really cool, but 2, if you did come across an absolutely A-grade demonic type case, it would scare the britches off you, because I've seen some stuff. I've told everybody a lot of stuff that happened in these, but there's certain things that I was told you never repeat, and you never go into them, you never tell anybody about them, which to this day I haven't done. But that being said, I haven't seen projectile vomiting, and I haven't seen heads twist, and I haven't seen anybody run across the walls. But one of the things I will say that I've seen is when people talk and it sounds like there's 3 voices coming out all at once. That is not something you can fake, as far as I'm aware anyway. You can put on a deep voice, or like the Enfield poltergeist, they're saying these girls, they were saying they sounded like an old man. You could potentially do that, but when you've got 3 voices coming out at once, that I don't know how anybody can do. Not without any kind of an electronic device or something. So there is definitely more to it. Whether it's demonic, I don't know, but there's definitely something out there. On that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. Leave everybody wondering.
I think that's it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
I'm here.
I hope you all got a little bit of knowledge out of this, knowing that there's a lot more to ghosts than just, oh, it's a ghost. You know, there's a lot of things you need to look into, especially if you're going to start doing residential cases, because you need to be going in informed, because the one thing you got to remember is these people are desperate and they are looking for somebody who can help them, and you need to know what you're going in to identify, and if you can't identify it, you can't help them. You shouldn't take the case on, because you could potentially be doing a lot more damage to that family than not getting involved at all. So on that, it is time to go. So take it easy, guys, and we'll see you all next week.
See you later.
Have a good one.